My name is Daniel. I'm 27 years old. I grew up in a small coastal town, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. Life was simple, quiet, and full of familiar faces. I lived with my parents, Mum, and my dad, Mark. He was a quiet man, always working, always tired, but always there. He taught me how to ride a bike, how to tie a tie, and how to fix a leaking tap. I didn't always understand him. He wasn't the kind of dad who said, "I love you," much. But when he looked at me, just one look, I always knew he cared. Still, deep inside, I often felt different. Like something didn't quite fit. I didn't look like him, not in the eyes, not in the smile. People would joke about it. "You sure you're Mark's boy?" They'd laugh. I'd laugh too, pretending it didn't sting. But the question stayed with me. One day, when I was 24, everything changed. Mum had been sick for a while, and as I sat beside her hospital bed, she took my hand and whispered, "Daniel, there's something you should know." Her voice trembled. "Your father, Mark, he's not your biological father." I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. "What do you mean?" I asked. Tears filled her eyes. "Before I met Mark, I made mistakes. I was young, scared, and you were born from a love that didn't last. When I met Mark, he knew the truth, but he still chose to raise you as his own." I didn't know what to say. The walls felt like they were closing in. Everything I believed, every memory, every moment, suddenly felt like a lie. When I looked at her, she was crying. "Please forgive me, Daniel. I should have told you sooner." I nodded slowly, but I couldn't speak. My throat burned. I left the room quietly, and for the first time, I didn't go home. That night, I sat on the beach, staring at the dark water. The waves crashed softly, like whispers in the night. I kept hearing my mum's voice in my head. "He's not your real father." But if Mark wasn't my father, then who was? And why did he never tell me? The next morning, I went home. Mark was in the kitchen, making his usual black coffee. He looked up and smiled. "You didn't come home last night." I wanted to scream, to ask him why he lied. But when I looked at him, the words stuck in my throat. Still, I asked softly, "You knew, didn't you?" He froze for a moment. Then slowly he nodded. "Yes, I knew." "Then why?" I said, my voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" He sighed and looked down. "Because it didn't matter to me. You were my son from the first time I held you. I didn't care whose blood ran in your veins. I cared about the boy who called me Dad." I stood there, tears burning in my eyes. "You should have told me." "I wanted to," he said quietly. "But I was afraid you'd stop seeing me as your father." I didn't know what to feel. Anger, sadness, love, confusion, all mixed together. I walked out, slamming the door behind me. For weeks, I avoided him. I barely answered his calls. Every time I saw him in town, I turned away. But one night, I found an old photo album on my bed. It was from when I was a kid. Fishing trips, birthdays, school plays. Every photo had him in it, always beside me, always smiling, proud. At the back of the album was a letter in his handwriting. Son, you don't owe me anything. Loving you was never a duty. It was a gift. You've been the best part of my life. Whether we share blood or not, you'll always be my boy. I broke down. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Because in that moment, I realized what I had been blind to all along. A few days later, I went to see him. He was sitting on the porch, reading the newspaper like he always did. When he saw me, he smiled, the same gentle smile I grew up with. I sat beside him, silent for a while. Then I said, "I'm sorry, Dad." He looked at me, surprised. "For what?" "For walking away," I whispered. "For not understanding. For forgetting everything you've done for me." He smiled softly. "You don't have to apologize. You just needed time." I nodded. My voice cracked as I said, "You're my father. You always were." He reached over and put his hand on my shoulder. That's all I ever wanted to hear. We sat there in silence, two men bound not by blood, but by love that had weathered everything. Today, when people ask about my dad, I smile and say, "He's the man who raised me, taught me right from wrong, and stood by me when no one else did." Because being a father isn't about sharing the same blood, it's about sharing the same heart. And I learned that the hard way. So if you're listening to this, remember, family isn't always about where you come from. It's about who stands beside you, who loves you without question, and who stays even when they don't have to. That's what makes someone a real parent.